say to our audience today, thank you very much for joining us. And of course, we are only able to do this by the support of our paying members. A membership of £5 a month is part of the small sum that keeps UK Column as a whole going. And our intention for the future is, despite everything that Mr. Starmer is trying to do, our intention is to expand the UK Column and to expand reporting about what is actually happening in the United Kingdom and worldwide. You can help us, of course, by sharing material. We're putting it out across the major platforms. Facebook at the moment is effectively shadow banning us, so we'll just cross that one off the list. But we're working to see whether that actually can be restored. Anybody can help us by making a purchase from the UK Column shop, and anything you buy is of help to us. So if you haven't been there before, please consider doing that. We'll also encourage our viewers and listeners to buy a copy of the Agenda 21 Your Life in Their Hands booklet. Many people have bought this. They have given us lots of complimentary responses about the content, the detail and the style. And this is encouraging us to produce different editions in the coming months. And we'll tell you more about that in due course. Now, an interview. I think this one is yours, Charles. Alistair Williams.
Indeed, yes. So I'd really encourage you to listen to Alistair Williams, who gives a fascinating personal insight into his career in comedy, but also how the scales fell from his eyes when he realised that, in effect, the entire system was controlled, but also, very interestingly, how comedy is used as a weapon with which to control and shape the agenda. And then he goes on to discuss his effectively deep Christian beliefs and how that's affected great change in him. So I'd really encourage you to listen to that.
Okay, and you've got a couple of adverts here: Died Suddenly and The Attack on Food and Farmers.
That's right, yes. Died Suddenly is to be an art exhibition in London in November, and if you're interested in helping with that, or you've got any information, then please get in touch with jakehfern at yahoo.co.uk, but it's specifically to do with the excess death situation in the UK and how it has not been addressed. And yes, as Brian says, then in September, on the 6th and 7th of September, there's to be a symposium run by or hosted by Children's Health Defence, so chd.tv, Attack on Food and Farmers and How to Fight Back. So essentially how to take control of your food supply, and a range of amazing speakers. So I think you'd learn a lot there. So I would encourage you to take part in that.
Okay, and also we'll give people a reminder of the UK On Location event in Bristol on the 19th of October, 2024. And early bird tickets are still available for that at a discount. So that's an attractive option. But what do we want to do? Well, obviously we want a very good and an exciting event, but we, the UK Column team, also want to be able to meet members of our audience. And this is a very important thing for us, meeting people in person, sharing stories, and also coming together in order to discuss and report what's happening in the world. Now, Charles, let's bring you back, because you are going to be talking about food security, which should be an important issue for all of us.
That's right, Brian. Yeah, I mean, it is a very important issue. Now, I was hoping to be able to have a certain amount of statistical information on harvests in UK, having reported earlier in the year that the outlook was looking dismal. Unfortunately, it takes an age to get hold of such statistics, but the mood seems to be that wheat harvest probably down about 15%. But of course, that's on very low planting in the first place. So we'll see on that. But significantly, the government recently have announced that they're going to conduct a rapid review to meet the Environment Act target. So straight away, their priority seems to be the environment and not farming. And I do make that distinction specifically because, in effect, there should be no need for it to be a binary choice. should be possible to improve both at the same time. But that seems to be something the government is unwilling to do, because it means banging heads with industry, which of course controls government. But nonetheless, from this, we see on the next slide just the text of, I mean, sort of banal really, but engagement with stakeholders across the environment, nature, farming resources, waste and water sectors, working hand in glove with businesses, local authorities and civil society across the country to develop new ambitious plans to save nature. So here we go again, banging the same drum. Everything's going to die, everyone's going to die, and it's all your fault. But in order to address the problem, we'll put an enormous number of people in the same room and expect to come out with one sensible solution. Very unlikely to work. But the point is, as I say, that the government seem to be suggesting that it's either nature or food and not both. Of course, there is a way in which farming and nature can work absolutely hand in hand. And I'd encourage you to listen to interviews with both Julian Rose and Angus McIntosh on the UK Column website. And there are a few more in the pipeline on exactly that subject. So the other thing that's come out recently is horticulture statistics from last year. So I should qualify, this is 2023. But given that food security is all about being able to produce food for the people that are in the country at the time, so therefore the right amount of food for that number of people, but also access to it in terms of cost. That is what food security is. How are we really addressing it? So statistics last year, and this is, as I say, just horticulture, but vegetables down nearly 5%, and the area used for vegetables down over 100,000 hectares, 6.5%. Fruit grown down 12%, the area down 32,000 hectares. Import of vegetables up last year by 13%, fruit up by 3.5%, and the export of vegetables was down by 22%, and fruit was down 4%. So obviously, economic consequences to the lack of export or the reduction in export, but the significant detail is at the bottom, which is that there's a 10% increase in the value of home-produced vegetables. So effectively, a smaller area to produce, fewer vegetables and fruits coming out of the ground, but greater revenue received as a total of the amount that was grown. So that just gives an idea of what's being called inflation. Now, there's not time to sort of go into exactly why that has been caused and whether it's genuine or artificial. The next slide just says a chart to show the effective trend in horticulture. This government, the previous government, had put out measures to have a serious uplift in horticulture, but they're not really talking about using the same amount of land. They're talking about food grown under stress conditions indoors and effectively producing fruit and vegetables in conditions that are not natural and call into question the whole idea of human health, and particular the bioavailability of any of the nutrients within the food produced. And as I say, the population, of course, is what makes food security secure or not. Now, are we anywhere near that? So the government have recently produced statistics last month, which we'll just look at on the screen now. The changing population produced on the 16th of July. And from it, if we just click on one, that they are very keen to avoid taking any responsibility for what's happening. So they say that the population is growing and is projected to reach 70 million in 2026. Well, that's quite soon. The population is also aging, and these factors will strain public services. Well, okay, fine. But if we go on to the next slide, we'll see the chart, which shows, of course, that there is a significant increase in population, but that is because, circled there at the top right, net migration is projected to add around 300,000 people each year in the long term. And they say in about a decade's time, natural change may become negative. Now, by natural change, they mean the difference between the birth and death rate, and that's projected to dip, yet they're still saying that an average of 300,000 people per year, which of course would be a reduction on last year's statistics in terms of migration. So food security cannot be considered in simple yield of produce from the UK. The population has to be taken into account. This seems to be something the government absolutely refuses to do. And of course, by putting the supposed environmental concerns first, it's very easy to see how food security is actually going to become more of a food scarcity issue. So we'll absolutely see where this goes as the harvest concludes for this year and we look towards autumn and winter.
Charles, there can be no doubt, putting this to a question as a question to you, but there can be no doubt that the government is deceiving the public over its true agenda. The figures are produced in one form to lead us in one direction. We're saving the planet, but the real agenda is an underlying agenda which isn't fully declared to the public.
Absolutely. And I mean, this is what we've seen very much over the course of this year in particular. And actually, one thing I could have mentioned was the enormous confusion that DEFRA put out the SFI, Sustainable Farming Incentive initiatives, basically all the new schemes. I think there are 470 new forms that could be considered by farmers who want to do this. And what they've changed is the ability to just roll one thing on to the next year. So they are bamboozling, exactly as you say, and they are very much saying one thing and doing completely another. And this is now part of the course, but this insistence that we must do something about the environment, but effectively the bluff in suggesting that all of these environmental measures will not affect food security. Of course they will.
Yeah, thank you for that.